Hey y'all, you're listening to SOS in Oz. I'm Cheeto.
I'm Christine, and today's episode we talk the Fremantle Australia Day saga and Prince Harry's new girlfriend. Also, in our topic/minority spotlight combo segment, we delve into biracialism and biculturalism in Australia with the co-creators of the PIN website. So keep listening. Okay, it's time for hot topics. So, starting off with some news about Prince Harry. Did you know that Prince Harry has a new girlfriend?
I think I heard about it a little bit. Yeah, no, tell me more.
Yeah, so she's an actress. She stars in Suits, the very popular TV series Suits. And she's American. She grew up in Crenshaw, I believe, which...
no idea where that is.
It's in Los Angeles, and for listeners who aren't very familiar with Los Angeles, Crenshaw is a little bit of a rough area to grow up in, so it's quite interesting that they're dating, given, how different their socioeconomic status is.
Not really, because Prince Harry's always been, one to dabble with the locals.
Really?
Yeah, no, he seems like a people's people.
I know he's a bit of a partier, but his past girlfriend...
He seems like a genuine people's people, though.
Maybe it's because he doesn't have pressure of ever being king. So he just does whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I was just wondering, do you think you could ever date a royal?
I don't know. I guess for her, because she knew that he was a royal, so it would be weird. I think it would depend, do you know the person before or after?
If you knew they were royal.
Oh, okay. I don't know, I think it would all depend on the person.
Really?
Because then it's a lot of sacrifices to make, and you have to think about, are you willing to lose some of your privacy? And I think the privacy thing would be a massive issue, and the pressure of having to conform to certain protocols or whatever rituals or whatever it is they do. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually that has been something that Meghan, Markle, the new girlfriend, she's been experiencing some social pressure, some backlash, a lot of racist comments because she is mixed race, which was also interesting. Not so much because she's mixed race, but because I don't know how the Queen feels about her her grandson, dating someone who's mixed race.
I reckon, she'll get over it.
She has to. But it's interesting because, the Queen has been around for a minute, during the time when Great Britain still had a lot of colonies all around the world. So it's just really interesting. You know what I mean?
No, I reckon she's had to get with the program. She's been around, like you said, since colonization, and now she's been around to see America having their first black president. So, I think if you still want to maintain some favor with the people, you need to get with the program.
Yeah, true story. And haven't heard too many reports of her being unhappy with Harry dating Meghan, so I suppose all is well.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, you have an update for us on the Fremantle story.
Yeah, so, you kind of posted this, but according to the Guardian Australian News, Fremantle has moved the citizenship ceremony back to Australia Day.
The 26th of January.
Yeah, so for those who didn't know about what was going on with this saga, Fremantle had tried to move these ceremonies and celebrations for Australia Day to a different day because they wanted to be culturally sensitive, because for some Indigenous people, 26th of January is seen as the day the invaders came in and is not a day of celebration and happiness. So Fremantle, wanting to progress, decided to move it. But now, because the councils had pressure from the federal government, they've now had to revert back to putting their citizenship ceremony back to Australia Day on the 26th of January.
It's very sad, very disappointing on many fronts, actually, because it's...
Yeah, it is.
Why not move the date so that everyone can feel happy to celebrate it? Australia and everything that it means to live in this wonderful country. Why not move the date? I really don't understand why we can't just all get along and see that some people are really hurt by having celebrations on a day that really marks the beginning of atrocities that happen to Indigenous Australians.
I don't get it either.
I think it's also unfair that the federal government can bully city councils like that.
Yep. In the future, I reckon people are going to try again. Eventually, there'll be enough pressure from people living here that we're going to move the day eventually.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I certainly do not celebrate Australia Day in the sense that I don't go to barbecues or anything or any parades. I pretty much just stay at home because I don't think it's right to celebrate that.
Yeah, it's 2016. We're almost in 2017. So...
So anyway, hopefully we'll see some progress next year. Well, in 2018.
I think the awareness is getting bigger, or at least voices are being amplified. So it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. That's what I say.
Okay, so that's what's up. Up next, we have a very special Minority Spotlight /
Super
topic
special.
combo.
Yep.
Yes, so we're going to take a quick break and stay with us. So Chido and I had the opportunity to sit down with Lucy Cutting and Kechi Anele, the co-creators of The Pin, a website that explores race, identity, and culture from the perspective of bicultural and biracial Australians.
We had a super great time meeting with Lucy and Kechi, and we are very excited to present you with this fantastic interview. Okay, and it's time for Minority Spotlight, and today Chido and I are sitting with two lovely ladies, Lucy Cutting and Kechi Anele, co-creators of The Pin.
Yeah, so starting with you guys, may you tell us a bit about yourselves, like where you were born and raised, your cultural backgrounds, and things that you love doing?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it away. So this is Lucy. I was born and raised in country Victoria in a place called Yea. It's got about 1,000 people. What do I love doing? I actually do love doing the pin. I mean, let's just be straight up. It fed off some interests that I already had. Like I loved blogging. I loved the idea of interviewing people and learning about people's personal stories. So that's probably a big thing for me, I reckon. Yeah. Kechi?
My name's Kechi. I grew up in Melbourne in Victoria. Things that I like doing. Sorry, I don't like doing the pin. No. This is it. Things I like doing. Well, actually, I think Lucy and I have a lot of shared interests, the pin being a very obvious one of them. And I'm in a band as well. I really love music and singing. So yeah, I guess they're my main interests. And also just like talking to people our age and younger and older to kind of find out like what interests other people have. So the pin was really interesting because I'm very curious and like being very nosy, so this was a good way I get to be as nosy as I like.
Nice. Awesome. Well, so we've been mentioning the pin a couple of times, but could you guys tell us what the pin is and what inspired you to create it?
Yeah, sure. So the pin is a website focused on race, culture and identity in Australia. And basically what we do is we have 3 different categories, which are think, meet and express. And through those ones, we explore those topics from lots of different angles. So we explore it through music, through art, through written content, so interviews, short essays about the topic as well. And it's lots of different opinions. So people that are parents to, say, a biracial child, or people that are biracial or bicultural themselves. So that's kind of the main things that we do on the site, and we've really delved into new different types of content. I guess what inspired it?
I guess our own experience. So Lucy and I are both Nigerian and Irish Australian, if that makes sense, if you can imagine it. We met each other about 4 years ago now, and when we met each other, we didn't actually realise that we had similar backgrounds, but it's also because we're, at least on our Nigerian side, from very different ethnic groups. So Lucy's Hausa and I'm Igbo. And throughout our friendship, race, culture and identity have been major topics, whether it is about music or fashion or boys or hair, especially hair. And it's been, I think, like I'm hoping for both of us, it's been like a really nourishing friendship to have someone that you can actually talk to who gets it. You don't have to explain yourself to them or have to put it into like frame out what you're about to say so that you don't offend them or they don't think it's something about them particularly. So we Lucy and I used to live together actually, but Lucy moved to Tasmania, and so our conversations got to really focus on race and identity because Lucy was experiencing stuff that I had experienced in Melbourne, in Victoria as a kid, being in a very kind of metropolitan area, whereas Lucy grew up in the country where, being the youngest as well, everyone kind of knew about who her family was.
It's already happened.
You didn't really get questioned as much as you did once you'd moved to Tasmania. And she's like, can you believe I've been asked, where are you from, like, every day? And I was like, well, that's what happens, because that's what happened to me as a kid and still is happening today. So we talked about it a lot and found a book that was called Half Half, which was written by an American author who was Japanese American, but she went and got different authors and academics and people to write about their experience of biracialism, biculturalism, looking at it as parents, looking at it as a child, or looking at it as like 6 generations down where they don't even look like what they feel. So there was one woman who was like 6 foot tall, pale, red hair, freckles, but she has Chinese heritage and it's very strong in her family, the culture of that. So we tried to kind of look and see if there was something like that available in Australia. And we also wanted to find out if like other people, like what their experiences were, was what we're having unique to us. And so we just decided, Lucy one day was like, let's just make something. And we kind of like, we've got
build a website.
Let's build a website. It's like, okay.
Busted out my credit card.
But it's kind of like, we laugh about it because Lucy and I have the kind of friendship where we're like, let's do something crazy. We just don't question it. We just do it. But normally nobody finds out about it. So this is the first time that we're like, let's do something. Oh no, people are going to see this. Oh my God.
It is a little bit scary when you're putting yourself out on blast like that, because, the internet is not a friendly place, which is what I've discovered, because I also do some writing and, reading people's comments. There are always people trying to troll you. Yeah. So, like, have you received any type of, like, negative commentary? I think most of the press I've seen you guys getting has been very positive, but
we don't. So basically with the site, the idea is that we want to create a safe space for people to discuss anything that they like, but we also, as a safeguard for cyber attack kind of, or cyberbullying, there's no we don't make comments an option for people to comment on other people's stories, because how can you comment on someone's experience? Like, that's their experience. There's nothing that you can really justifiably say to someone to say that their experience didn't exist, because that's true. That's what's true to them, and that's what we wanted to create through the website. We've been really lucky. We're kind of like waiting for our first death threat. We're like, no, made it when someone wants to kill us. So the only kind of minor backlash we had was around the wording. It's really sensitive to talk about race and to give labels to things. So we did have someone say, why is it just biracial people? And it was like, whatever. Because we are biracial and we want to find out. It's our project. If you want to do
and I guess that's also the beauty of the
Yeah.
internet, because you have your niche places on the internet. You can create things for minorities. And Yeah, we did have a little bit of a backlash against one particular story, Peter Drew. I think...
Oh, is that the artist who did different portraits?
Yeah, the Aussie and what's the other one? The Real Australians Say Welcome. So I guess people just kind of felt that because he wasn't actually biracial or bicultural himself, it's kind of almost slight appropriation or something.
The issue around it was also that we had promoted a white male promoting culture that he didn't belong to, and so it was almost a thing of like you're letting someone talk on behalf of somebody else without actually getting the actual person doesn't have a voice. That was the big issue, because the photo is of is he a Khmer? And it's from the Australian Mongatam. It's from the Australian archives, and the issue was like you don't know if he saw himself as Australian or not. There was a lot,
that was, I guess that comes back to the label thing of, you know, he's taken this picture from the National Archives and labelled it Aussie, and it's kind of, I guess it's taking that man's identity and saying you are Australian. So we had a tiny backlash.
But what's great about our working together on this is that when we do come up with that, we kind of like tap in and out of conversations with people. So at the end, we actually offered that person a platform. Well, he said, well, you've actually raised an interesting point, and if you want, we're happy to promote your voice if you want to be interviewed for the pin or want to like be a part of the website as well, because you've given us feedback and got nothing. So sometimes the best way to deal with people who are very critical is to ask them to be a part of it and see like if they are genuine and really want to kind of give a voice to things that haven't been voiced as much as they would like. It's good to also give them the opportunity. We through a few of our interviews we've had experiences where we listen to people and it's like, wow, I don't think that way. But it's nice to have that on the platform, because there could be someone else somewhere feeling like no one thinks like them, and then they see themselves reflected back. So it's fine.
That's what I like the most about the pin. It's just like there's so many different people, and you can just sort of click and you kind of feel like you're having a little conversation with them, but digitally. Virtually.
Well, I think one of the things I love is there's just so many different stories, and one of my favourite stories that's really stood the test of time for me is the anonymous piece that we had done by a young Lebanese Australian guy who's gay, and just that kind of clash of cultural values, sexuality, gender. You know, he is the intersectional experience of culture, gender, sexuality, everything, and that piece gives me shivers and makes me cry still.
Far out.
So
When
many
we first
stories.
read it, Lucy read it first and sent it to me, and she's like, I'm crying, you need to read this. And I was like, oh my god, do I want to go there? But it was really that piece highlighted was how, even though, like, realistically, if we're being real about it, if you're not Indigenous Australian, you have come here from another country, or like have genetics that have come here from another country at one point in your heritage. And it was really amazing to read, and what continues to come out is how much respect people have for the cultures that they belong to, and that piece really highlights it, because he really wants to uphold his cultural values over his sexuality, and is okay with kind of living this kind of half life,
but also not okay.
But also not okay. And I think it really highlights the struggles that a lot of people our age living in Australia, even if you're like Lucy and I, we're technically first generation on one side of our family, or if you're a few generations on, or even if you came here as a child or an adult, and you see the struggle between maintaining both cultures and being able to sit happily within both of them at the same time. My hairdresser, anyway, my hairdresser and I used to talk about, she grew up in Paris, and her family's from Cameroon, and she was talking about how she never felt that she was completely French, even though she was born there, because she had a family who have their culture, and it's not the French culture. And then when she went to Cameroon, she felt like she wasn't African, she was more French, and she's like, I just don't know where to fit. And it was amazing, because I thought that was a unique experience that only biracial kids have, because we don't look like we belong anywhere. But it was a really big, like, to quote Oprah aha moment, where you understand that it's not necessarily a unique experience to you, even though it does feel that way when you're growing up. And I think that's also a really valid thing that we have on the site to show people that it does seem super unique, but actually there's heaps of us out there going through the same experience, even if we come to it through different avenues.
Yeah, I would definitely say I kind of fit into that boat. Like, I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, but then I moved to the US. I spent quite some time there, and quite, I guess, like formative years in the US. And then, I came here, but it's weird because when I go back to Zimbabwe, I don't feel 100% Zimbabwean anymore. But when I'm in America, I don't feel 100% American. So it's like this where is home thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think even in our recent, so we've kind of delved into film as well, and for Jones from 1200 Techniques was saying, sometimes African people question his Africanness, and he was just talking about how confronting that can be. So it's definitely it's come up quite a bit on the website, that idea of feeling like you don't belong in the many places that you feel like you're meant to belong. So
okay, so Christine and I have this debate a lot. So there are a lot of people, like you guys included, working hard in minority communities to make platforms so that we can share our experiences. So what do you think we could do to reach those who generally don't want to engage in topics such as race, culture, and identity? And what do you think we could do to convince them that these issues are important and affect everyone?
Yeah, I kind of think so much of it feeds down from what our mainstream media delivers to us. So I think the responsibility really lies there quite a bit for the topics to kind of be broadcast to the mainstream and for people to actually start caring about it. But I think it's also that the opportunities to engage people when they do present those views that they feel that it doesn't matter. I think a good example is, Black Lives Matter, when people say that all lives matter. And that's such a great facepalm opportunity to kind of then go on and say, why do you feel that way, and how do you think that it affects people? So it's difficult though. I mean, for us, it is so interesting how a lot of the media opportunities that we've had, so the people that have interviewed us and the radio opportunities we have been kind of, say, not considered particularly mainstream, except for maybe ABC Radio, but then they have that, the cultural diversity push that they're currently doing. So I think that's why that's happened. So it's kind of a lot of it, I feel, is the media.
Yeah. I once saw this really interesting article where they talked about how when you put the gender issues, how far they've come since, like, from being gay or homosexual or queer seen as a completely illegal thing to now where it's celebrated, it's a part of our mainstream culture for the most part, and how, especially only referring really to black rights movements because that's the only example I can think of right now, but how little it's really come when you see where we're at now, like where you see the expectancy of when the big movements were happening, what they thought was going to happen, and now looking at where we are now. And this person brought up a really interesting point that for a lot of people in families and in communities, they would have, like, the thing that was the turning point was that someone in their family would come out as being queer, whereas you don't necessarily have someone, like, in a white family being like, hey, and how,
except for that woman in the US.
Oh, so yeah. It's like, I'm black today.
Rachel Dalzell.
Lady.
I think so, right. And how, like, that's been a very big part of the movement because people empathise because it's a part of their family. And I think the only way to have discussions with people is not actually to come to a place to have that discussion. It's actually through integrating in other areas. So when you think, like, I've heard this so many times growing up where one of my best friends was Chinese and she was told, oh, but you're, like, by someone who she thought was her friend was like, oh, but you're a good Chinese person because, like, I know you and you speak English well. And it's that thing of, like, I can't say that word, Familiarity. Thank you. I can't say it. I always want to say it, but I never can. And it's that thing of like meeting people through other means where race and culture are not the topic of at that point, and establishing a relationship and then in having that conversation later on, which sounds like a really like roundabout way of doing it. But it is because they need to get to know you before you can have that conversation, because up until that point you're going to make assumptions about each other that aren't true and that are going to piss each other off, and you get nowhere from that. Because when you watch those like Q&A or watch live debates where they talk about race and you look at the people that are on either side, they're not people that mix together. They're not people that probably mix with each other, not necessarily specifically each other, but in each other's culture groups. Even if the people of colour are living in Australia, which is like a predominantly white society, the people on the side that don't like multiculturalism or don't like integration or talking about race are people that generally don't actually integrate with people of colour. Yeah. So they need to be in that kind of... They need to have that experience of being around people of colour without race and politics being brought up in that instance, to then be able to be open up to learn about people. Because I'm not empathizing with them, but if you imagine like you're seen by society as being very privileged, and then you're asked to go into a community of people who are the opposite of you and then have a conversation about it, how I know that I would be intimidated and then be on the back foot for the whole conversation, and that's not what you want to happen. You want to have people be able to be relaxed, able to be empathetic to each other and have that conversation.
Yeah, that's very true. It's kind of like a carrot and stick kind of approach, I guess. It's just, gently introduce this other experience without freaking somebody out. Yeah. But it makes me think of, so sometime last year I did a talk at a writers' festival, and it was just about the where are you from question, and that was in Hobart. And I guess the audience just wasn't expecting it, because it was a series of talks and they were all completely different, and mine was the last one to come up. And I had people come up to me at the end of the talk and kind of say, I have to admit, when you stepped onto the stage, the first thing I thought is, where is this girl from? And the fact that you then went on to school us on this where are you from question was really quite eye-opening. And a guy said to me, I'm actually going to go back to my workplace and talk about this, because it's important that people understand how this question can affect people. Yeah. So, it's very much that. Yeah, it's that
easy to understand people's experience. Because, especially with that question, people think that they're the first person to ask us that. I've started just telling people that I come from a vagina. Which is true. Where did you come from?
It's good to know where you come from, Kirch.
So on that, we just wanted to find out, what are your future plans and aspirations for the pin?
Well, I guess, we've kind of stepped into video, and we would love to do more film stuff. Another big thing, I guess, that we really want to engage with in the coming year is just having actual gatherings. So we have one person attending. So we're kind of looking into maybe having a gathering about mid-year. We were hoping to do it in Tasmania, but once again, Tasmania diversity is not a big thing there, so we'll probably do it in Melbourne. So
and that's not because we don't want to encourage diversity in Tasmania, but we're not really involved in groups enough to have pulling power to bring them to something, or we don't feel like we are as of yet. So we're trying to still figure that out. We had this amazing idea, but
put it out there into the universe.
Well, we kind of the idea, when we do hold a pin event, is to basically make the online 3 areas into physical.
So we had this kind of idea of having almost a 2-day event of music. So musicians in Australia that are doing amazing things but aren't really getting the platform. We're hoping to do something like that, like poetry, and just really exploring the topic from different perspectives.
And then having almost a Q&A, not Q&A, sorry, almost having
a panel discussion,
and interview, and then one-off interviews with people as well, and fireworks and blow-ups and everything else.
It sounds awesome.
But yeah, we've got a few different like variations on that, because we also we had an amazing experience where when we interviewed Remy and Sensible J, we went to Enfer Jones's cafe and sat there with them. And I've met Remy and Sensible before through touring in Australia and overseas with them. It was Lucy's first time meeting them, and I remember when we were walking there, she's like, what's it going to be like? I'm like, it's strangely enough, when you meet them, you feel like they're your siblings, so you just like click into this, like start paying them out like automatically. It's like, don't even wait to say hi. It's like, what are you doing? And we ended up sitting, so it was amazing. We were sitting in this cafe, and Remy is also Nigerian because we get around, and Sensible J, and then having Enfer Jones, and then they brought their management team who were Indian but from the UK. They grew up in the UK, so it's just like we ended up having this like massive kind of like hangout, and it was such a great experience to be around, like to walk into a cafe and just see like so many faces that kind of look like you.
Yeah, exactly. And that shared experience as well.
Experience. Like we all got our food and then we're like, we need chili. Like, we need some hot stuff like this. And just being able to talk and also creating that safe space, we really want to build on that, because it was such a great experience. And for some people, it's like, I'm having these experiences in my late 20s and I wish I had them earlier.
And it's so weird as well to have that experience later in life and to think, hey, you know, potentially a lot of white people don't even appreciate this experience because it is just the norm. But to actually step into a space where there's a lot of people who've had, you know, a similar experience to you is, it actually is a safe space. Like, it sounds like a cliche, but it felt really comfortable.
It's realising that there are some really underlying kind of anxieties that we have around just being in areas and feeling free to be yourself. And so we really want to create nights where you can just have that, where you just are yourself and no one's questioning where you're from.
We're definitely looking forward to that. Are you on Facebook? I guess where can people
so our website is thepin.org. On Facebook we're The Pin Online, and on Instagram we're __.
Yeah, so just want to take time to thank you guys again.
Thanks for having us.
We're loving what you're doing.
Amazing.
Katie and I love talking.
So we'll be doing a 3-hour show.
You guys are good talkers.
And that's a wrap for today's show. Please hit the subscribe button in iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. As always, you can find us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Just search for SOS in Oz. Thanks for listening, and until next time, bye!